we could always get rid of it.
Yeah.
Should we
Okay,
go?
so we're recording. Yeah, can everybody see the PowerPoint all right?
Yeah, could you go to the first slide, the sign-in slide?
Yep.
And I'll just say something like click or something to.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh, you wanted to go to the first one. Okay, that one.
Yep, great.
Yep.
Hey, thanks for being here tonight. I'm really excited to be able to talk with you. First thing, I want to get passing around a sign-up a sheet on this too, but would love to have you sign in or text to sign in. You put the first thing you put on text to this number here, 650-763-2405, and include three things. Hashtag, remember, make sure you put the number signal, the hashtag, and then the number of this workshop, your first name and your last name, and then your email address. And we'll pass this around. It's really important for us to be able to be in touch with you. You'll get a lot of positive, helpful things following up from this workshop. And the other thing, it's really easy to get off our mailing list if you decide you want to. So let's click to the next one. And the next one. So who is Positive Coaching Alliance? First of all, way more, we've trained way more than 80,000 coaches. We've reached about 3.3 million kids over the years. This year we're on track to do 2,500 live workshops. So this workshop today is one of 2,500, and we have a new resource, PCA Development Zone Resource Center, and we had more than 1 million visits to that resource center during the first year. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Click. But I want to start by asking you, what does positive coaching mean to you? And because we're a small group, I'm not going to have you partner up, but would like to open the floor. What is Positive Coaching Alliance? What does positive coaching mean to you? Somebody?
Using positive reinforcement with kids.
Thank you. Great. Any other idea?
I think it's just trying to bring out the best in kids.
Okay. Fantastic.
Sounds like happy talk to me.
Okay. Say more about what you mean by happy talk.
I don't think of myself as negative, I think, but I don't know how chipper and, I don't know, stickery I need to be.
Yeah, okay. Well, many years ago I did my first workshop in the South, and the fellow who brought us there required his coaches to go to it, and so we started the thing out by asking, when your boss told you had to go to this positive coaching meeting, what was your first thought? And the whole room was quiet, and finally one guy raised his hand and he said, non-competitive liberalism. And I said, we'll pass on all the laughter that you usually get from that. And I said, we're not going to get into politics here, but I am not non-competitive, and we are not, Positive Coaching Alliance is not non-competitive. To us, click. Oops. To us, positive coaching means, boom, it's about performance. It's always, with PCA, it's always been performance. How do we get the best out of kids? Click. And we talk about the power of positive. My personal experience working with emotionally disturbed behavior problem kids when I was a young adult was formative for me. These were very troubled kids. They were bussed in from all around the city to a special school, and they were very challenging to work with. I was trained by some really talented educators in what I now call a relentlessly positive approach. And I thought, that's just the way things are. But then a few years later, met my wife at that school, got married, and a few years later, my son is playing sports as a first grader, and I could not believe how much negativity there was. But then I found out, in addition to my experience, there was a whole big set of research. Click. Would somebody read Barbara Fredrickson? Barbara Fredrickson is at the University of North Carolina, and she's also on PCA's National Advisory Board. Would somebody in the audience, don't wait for permission, just read out loud what her statement is?
Sure. There's a perception. We can read it in harmony.
That the best way to get what you want out of employees or players is by negativity or threats, or being stressful or intense. But in terms of bonding, loyalty, commitment to a team or a group, and personal development over time, negativity doesn't work as well as positivity. Positive emotions are especially contagious, and a leader's positive emotions are more contagious than anyone else's.
So Barbara Fredrickson coined this term upward spiral. I think we've all heard of, have you all heard of a downward spiral where things just get worse and worse and worse? What she's saying is that when leaders are positive and they stay positive, you can actually create an upward spiral that will bring the whole team up with you. Click. And it's not just Barbara Fredrickson's work. She wrote a book called Positivity, which lays out the research behind this. Some of you may have seen this Sports Illustrated article last September called The Last Days of the Abusive Coach. And would somebody read what Alex Wolff wrote in this article?
Study after study shows the benefits of a more positive approach.
This is not controversial. There's no study that says a negative approach or even a neutral approach works better. The research over and over again says a positive approach gets a better results. So I had my own personal experience with positivity working with very troubled kids. I had learned all this incredible research. And then we have some of the greatest coaches in the world working with Positive Coaching Alliance. Click. Would somebody read Phil Jackson's statement here?
About that time, Jim's book shows up and positive coaching becomes an influence in my life. The 5-to-1 ratio. 5 praises to 1 critique. And of course, the rest we know is that these Bulls won 3 championships in a row.
So, and you may notice the book, on page 2 of the book, Phil Jackson actually wrote the foreword for the book that you have. I was raised in North Dakota, Norwegian Lutheran, and I was taught that you don't seek the spotlight. But I want to ask you, when it says Jim's book, who is the Jim that they're referring to?
Jim Thompson.
You.
Collins.
Some people said Jim Valvano in previous workshops. But yes, it is me. Phil Jackson at the time had won 2 NBA championships, and he got a copy of my book. A mutual friend sent him a copy of it, and he became immediately a big supporter of Positive Coaching Alliance. Now, let me ask you, Phil won 9 additional championships after he read my book. Do I have an NBA championship ring on my finger?
Nope.
No.
I don't. I think that's a real unfairness. Clip. Chip. It's not just Phil Jackson. We have some of the greatest players and coaches in the world who support us. Bruce Bochy at the top left. We gave him our Lifetime Achievement Award a few years ago, and one of the things he said is, baseball is a long season. Doesn't matter how good you are, you're going to have slumps. And the key to resilience, the key to breaking those slumps is to be positive. Anybody recognize any of the other people up there?
Steve Kerr.
Yeah, maybe the hottest coach in the world right now. Totally a positive approach. Anybody else?
Brad Stevens.
Brad Stevens, who did an amazing job at Butler and now has taken what I think is a pretty limited, talented team with the Celtics and put them in a strong position. We also have Janine Tucker, who is one of the top lacrosse coaches in the country at Hopkins University. Julie Foudy, who's many of you have seen on ESPN. Doc Rivers with the Clippers, Steve Young, and Dusty Baker, who just became the manager of the Nationals. When you look at the greatest coaches around, they tend to be really positive. Click. And then we also, in addition to the research, in addition to all these great coaches and athletes, we work with some of the greatest sports psychology folks in the country. Two in particular, Charlie Marr with the Indians and Ken Ravizza at Cal State Fullerton, who's been working over time with the Tampa Bay Rays and also a lot with the Angels. And I actually have 2 podcasts with them on our website that are well worth the time to listen to, because these are some of the most thoughtful people about how you get the best out of elite athletes. And when I asked Charlie Marr, Charlie has this great phrase, mind in the moment. He says, you cannot be a great athlete unless you can keep your mind in the moment. And I asked him, what does negativity does? And he says, it distracts you. It takes your mind out of the moment. Click. So let me ask you, do you agree? If you agree that positivity works better, raise your hand. 2 out of 3? Okay. And what about negativity? Do you agree that negativity distracts?
Yeah.
Okay. If that's the case, why is there so much negativity in sports? Just take 30 seconds and think about that. Again, I would do a buzz on this, but why is there so much negativity in sports?
I think there's so much pressure.
Okay, say more about pressure.
I just think in youth sports, there's a lot of pressure to win, because we're trying to produce these athletes that are going to go on to bigger and better things in high school, college, club. And so the coaches are under a lot of pressure for the performance of these kids.
Yeah, some people describe coaching as being in a fishbowl where everybody's watching you. Most of us at our job, we don't have somebody in a circle around us watching us and second guessing us. Eric, were you going to say something?
I think the pressure to win.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
And whether it's true pressure or self-induced is a topic as well.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, does it?
One would like to think not.
Any other thoughts about why there's so much negativity?
Well, I think people get frustrated around youth sports. Coaches get frustrated when their players don't play well and make them look bad. I think parents get frustrated when their vision of their child as an athlete isn't playing out before their very eyes. So I think a lot of the negativity grows out of that frustration.
You know, we're all baseball coaches here today. I coached a lot of baseball earlier in my life, and the thing that frustrated me most was runner on third base with less than 2 outs. And I would teach them, watch the ball when there's a fly ball, watch the ball into the glove before you leave third base. And invariably, they would leave just a split second before the ball was caught, and they'd be doubled up. And it's like you work all week on that, maybe even several weeks. So yeah, there's a lot of frustration with kids who are trying to learn the game. You know, I did a workshop for USA Football at their national conference recently, and I asked this question, and one of the answers was because it's easier to be negative. And I thought about that. Yeah, when we get frustrated, things don't work, it's easier to be negative, and we think that's why positive coaching is a discipline. It takes more strength to remain positive when things go bad. Any other thoughts about negativity in sports and this issue?
I think it's the modeling, too, the modeling that they see on TV and in the media of these great coaches that are flipping out, and that's the model that they have to go from.
Thank you. That's a great comment, and that's one reason we think it's so important to have people like Steve Kerr and Phil Jackson, Doc Rivers, Brad Stevens, etc., as visible symbols. Click. So what is PCA about? I said earlier it's about performance. We want to use research from sports psychology and other relevant disciplines, the best practices of some of the greatest coaches in the world, to develop better athletes, better people. That's what it's about. Better athletes, competing, becoming excellent, doing the best you can to win the game, and then also better people. Click. So we talked about how hard it is to maintain positivity when there's so much frustration and pressure to win, etc. Want you to know that we have support from PCA. One is we're going to share with you tonight a research-based coaching model to help you get better performance out of kids. Second, we're going to give you some practical tools. And third, ongoing support. Again, if you text to sign up for this, you'll get weekly talking points that we'll talk about a little later. The book is a resource. We already mentioned to you Phil Jackson's intro at the book. There is way more in this book than we're going to cover today, and I hope you will see this book as a resource that you can come back to again and again. Okay, click.
Click.
So, what makes a great youth sports experience for kids? What things make that? Talk to the person next to you for a minute or two. What makes a great youth sports experience? Anybody got any thoughts?
I think when the kids develop relationships with one another.
Friendship, yeah, relationship. Great.
When they,
being part of something.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, when they learn, grow, improve, feel when they get better.
It's almost like you guys know what's coming next.
That's good.
So, click. Thank you. Those are great thoughts, and I think you're going to see a lot of that reflected here. The first thing we feel that is necessary for an athlete to have a great experience is, click, to feel connected to their teammates and coaches. We may forget how scary it can be to go to join a new team, and that first thing is they have to feel like their coach cares about them, their teammates care about them, they feel connected to the team. Second is believing that they can improve. You may have players who start out very weak as athletes, but if you can convince them that they can improve, that you believe in them and make them believe that they can improve, then they're going to get better, and it's going to be a fantastic experience, no matter where they start from. And then thirdly, kids want to feel proud about being part of a team that does things the right way. Any thoughts about these three, what we think are the bottom line, the things you got to have in sports for kids to have a good experience? Any reactions to it? Click. So if your players get these things, they feel connected to their teammates and their coach, they believe they can improve, and they feel good that the team is doing things the right way, what might happen with this team?
They might win.
They'll play better.
Yeah.
They will show up more consistently.
Yep.
Probably have more fun, enjoy it more.
I think all those are true. One of the things we're very concerned about, again, we're all baseball people here, is kids dropping out of sports. If kids have this kind of experience, they're more likely to come back. We have a huge partnership with Major League Baseball. When the new commissioner came on board a year ago, the first thing he said in his first press conference was, "We got to make youth baseball better so kids stay." Average age of an NBA fan is 34. Any guesses about the average age of a Major League Baseball fan?
50.
I was going to say 12.
52. So you see why, as the NBA has a much younger fan base, why Major League Baseball is concerned about youth baseball, because they want to keep kids in baseball so they become fans. So what you're going to hear from Herm Edwards, who is a former NFL coach on our National Advisory Board. In fact, let's hear from Herm right now.
Oh, this is next. Before Herm. This one comes up on mine.
Yeah. Okay, I misread my thing. Thank you.
That's okay.
So the connected part. We're going to talk about a concept we call the emotional tank, and how filling emotional tanks makes kids feel connected to their coach and teammates. Believing they can improve. We're going to talk about a concept we have called the Elm Tree of Mastery. E for effort, L for learning, M for bouncing back from mistakes, that will help them believe they can get better. And then playing with integrity, we call honoring the game. So before we jump into that, let's hear from Herm Edwards, who many of you I'm sure have seen on ESPN. Go Herm.
Go Herm. Okay, you can't hear it, but Herm's talking away.
And click. Click. Yeah, thank you. Somebody read this for me. Don't wait for permission, just read it out loud.
When the book of your life is written, will it say that you made a difference?
So what do you want the book of your life to say? What do you want kids to say about you having coached them? Any thoughts off the top of your head?
I want them to say that I was a good role model for them.
Okay.
That I cared more about them than I cared about myself.
Wow. Wow. I'll tell you, if somebody said that about me, I would feel like my life was well lived. That's a great statement.
I would say that I would love for them to say that I made them really enjoy what they do every day, and they looked forward to coming.
Wow, you guys are great. I would like to have my kids coached by you.
I want them to say I was a good teacher.
Yes, yes. You know, we've got a lot of professions in this room. And the reality is that in our profession, we can have an impact, we can do good work, but none of us, I would go out on a limb here and say none of us have the ability to influence people's lives in our jobs that we do as coaches. Being a coach gives us an opportunity to impact just kids' lives in ways that we otherwise don't get to do. So I feel really privileged to be here with you to share this tonight. Click. Our model of coaching is a double goal coach. First goal is striving to win. This goes back to my story about giving that talk in the South. We're not non-competitive. This is about being our best and striving to win. And the second, more important goal even, is teaching life lessons. Click. We've already talked about these three things, and but we're going to go into them. And in just a second here, we're going to start with the first principle, which is it leads to connecting people with their team and their coach, filling an emotional tank. Kelly, do you take over at this point?
I do.
Go get it.
All right. Should I just jump right in? Do we want to debrief that, or do we just jump right in?
Let's get going.
I'm going to jump right in. Okay. Thanks, Jim. So principle number one is filling the emotional tank. Now let's think about this. Jim was just talking about connectedness. I have a wonderful quote here by a beautiful American, Maya Angelou. May I have a volunteer to read that quote for me?
I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Some of you may have heard this before. You also may have heard this in coaching terms, where I used to hear this from people all the time that said, when I was teaching, that said that kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I want you all to think right back, right now, in all of your careers as an athlete, and I want you to think about your favorite team that you were ever on at any age in your life. Okay, just take a second to think about that team. Now, what I'd like you to do is turn to the person next to you on either side. We're going to call them your shoulder partner, and I want you to tell them one thing that made being on that team so special for you. What was that so memorable? So you're going to talk for 30 seconds. Can I have a couple volunteers? What made that team so special for you?
For me, it was my high school volleyball team, my senior year. And, well, quite honestly, one of the things that was memorable is that we did so well and advanced so far. You know, we had a really successful season.
Absolutely. So, of course, you remember a team that you were successful on. Thank you for sharing that. Can I have someone else?
Yeah, I work for an organization. You may, I'm not sure if you heard of it or not. It's called Positive Coaching Alliance.
I have.
I think it really does feel like a team, and it's actually been a better team experience than any sports team I've been on. And I think one of the reasons is we have this thing called debate and commit, where people really share how they feel and are willing to disagree with each other, which raises up a whole bunch of stuff. But we're able to, that we wouldn't otherwise get, but we're also able to disagree with each other in a way that allows us to feel that we really care about each other.
I like that. So you're able to disagree, but in respectful terms, and you still feel cared about. So thank you very much for sharing, and I might take a few more. All right, well, what I'm hearing both of you talk about is how you felt. And sometimes when you talk about positive coaching, I've had people say, oh, that's all touchy-feely, and everybody's going to hug at the end of every practice, and it's going to be everyone gets a trophy and a ribbon. And what I'm going to explain to you today in this very first principle is the idea, we use the analogy of a gas tank. Now, all of us know it doesn't matter how fancy or how expensive your car is. If you have no gas, my dad used to say, no gas, no go. So don't ever get in the car with an empty tank because you're not going to go anywhere. We use this analogy of a gas tank to talk about the player's emotional tank. And everyone has a certain emotional tank level. I want you as coaches right now to think about the players that you have on your team. And I want you to picture a player on your team that comes to practice with an empty emotional tank. You just know that tank is drained. There's nothing left to give. And I would like a volunteer to tell me, what does that player look like at the very beginning of practice? Tell me about his or her behavior, the beginning of practice.
They probably look dejected.
Okay, show me what that looks like. Right, head down, dejected, not into it. Someone else, what would that player with the empty tank, what would their behavior be during a drill? Let's say you came up with this fantastic drill, you've got all the moving parts and everything's perfect, but that empty tank player, what would his or her behavior be like during that drill?
Not paying attention.
Right, not paying attention, distracted possibly. How about while you as the coach are trying to give instructions, because we change activities often, how would that player be acting while you're giving instructions?
Not paying attention.
Yes, not paying attention, possibly distracting others and taking the attention away from this fabulous drill that you just did. How about when that player has just made an error or a mistake? How would that empty tank player feel? Or how would they act?
Hang head, bad body language.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing. If anyone has had a player on their team that has exhibited any of the behaviors we just mentioned, I'd like you to raise your hand. Absolutely. We all have. We all have. What we're going to talk about today is how we can reverse that trend. And as coaches, we have a lot of power in this area. Sometimes when I was teaching, I would have parents come to parent-teacher conferences, and I'd be talking about their child, and I would say, oh, Andy is just a great kid. He's always on time for school. He's raring to go. And the mother would say, my son is Andrew. Are you talking about the same kid? Because my kid's not like that at home. One of the things I think as coaches we have to realize is the behavior of the kids when we are in charge of them at practice or at a game could be completely different than their situation at home. And that can be a positive or a negative. So let's figure out how we can take these athletes and make sure that we all have full tanks. Because let's take a minute to look at the other side of that. When you have a player that has a full tank, what are they going to look like coming to practice? Call it out.
Eager, enthusiastic.
Absolutely. What are they going to be doing during a drill?
Paying attention.
Great. What are they going to be doing while you're giving instructions?
Paying attention.
You got it. And what are they going to be like when they make a mistake?
Resilient.
Determined.
Exactly. So let's see how many of these you got here. You hit the nail on the head. We've got empty tank. The kids are pessimistic. They're giving up easily. They're less coachable. When they have a full tank, they're optimistic. They can deal with adversity, resilient, I heard somebody say, and they are more coachable. So let's take a minute to talk about what drains the tank and what fills the tank. We as coaches, of course, want to do everything we possibly can to be tank filling, but we're also human. So I'm going to set up a little exercise here for us. I'm going to be the shooter, and I'm going to shoot a basketball or a soccer ball, depending on what sport. You're all multi-age, multi-sport room. We're a very diverse group here today. So I'm going to take this basketball, and I'm going to shoot it. And I'm going to take this half of the room over here. So that would be Ruben is on this half of the room. When I shoot this, that whole half of the room, your job is going to be to fill my tank. This is Villanova hitting the final shot against Oklahoma on Saturday, and they're going to be winning. So final shot goes in, I shoot, I score. Ruben, and your side of the room, fill my tank.
Yeah, woo!
Thank you.
All the way, baby.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you. Now, same shot. Not the same scenario, though. This time I took the shot and I missed it. This whole half of the room, I would like you to drain my tank. Ready? Shot goes up and I miss. Drain my tank.
I knew you were going to miss it.
Oh, there goes our chance for the Final Four.
Yeah.
All right. All right, people that were on this left side of the room, when you saw Ruben Ruben, you filled my tank. When you looked on this side of the room, what did you see them doing or hear them doing to drain the tank? What'd you notice?
Derogatory comments.
Okay, good. What else?
Negative body language.
Yeah, awful, awful, awful. Look what they did. Did you hear some criticism, correction, possibly sarcasm? Yes, all of these things can drain a player's tank. Ignoring, nonverbals. Ruben, did you see any nonverbals out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slumped shoulders.
Absolutely.
Shaking their head.
Absolutely. Jim and Eric, on your side, when you looked over and saw Ruben filling my tank, what did you see and hear?
I saw enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm, excitement. Any nonverbals, Jim? Did you see any nonverbals?
I also saw enthusiasm.
Exactly. Thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Yes.
Yes. Exactly. Here are some things that fill tanks. Now, so we know what drains the tank. We know what fills the tank. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Hold on, I'm getting a text that closed me off here. There we go. Okay. Here's what we're going to do this time. I'm going to go up for the same shot, and I'm going to miss, and I'm going to ask the whole room up on their feet. Okay, so everybody's going to stand up on their feet. I am going to miss this shot, and you're going to fill my tank. Ready? Go. Shot, miss, fill my tank.
That's okay. That's okay. Next play. Get it back.
Way to be aggressive. That's what I'm doing. Stay with
That was
it.
a little, thank you, thank you. Which was easier to do? To fill my tank when I make it or to fill my tank when I miss?
Make.
Right, fill my tank when I make it. We're
Make.
conditioned. This is what society tells us to do. You all did a great job trying to come up with tank fillers, but it was a little awkward. Let's say I miss now, but this time you're not going to speak. I want to do it non-verbally. I'm going to miss. You're disappointed. You're going to drain my tank. I want you to do it non-verbally, no speaking. Shot goes up, you miss. Let me look out. What are you doing? Exactly. Right. Non-verbals are very, very powerful. Look around the room. Look at what you see. I want all of you right now to close your eyes, and I want you to picture a coach that you had at one point or another in your life that was disappointed in you. I want you to picture that coach's face, or maybe it was a parent, or maybe it was a teacher. How many years ago was that? Open your eyes. Who can tell me about how many years ago that was?
30.
1981.
Okay, 30 years ago, 1981.
34 to be precise.
Studies have shown that nonverbals stay with players or kids 10 times longer than what is actually said. The fact that 30 years later you can vividly picture that person and the way they looked when they were disappointed in you is very powerful. So coaches, we know it's in our genes to praise when things go well, to be disappointed when they don't. One of the phrases that my daughter's first grade teacher used to say to the kids is complaining your brain. If you feel upset about something as a coach, we need to model tank filling behavior non-verbally is one of the most important ways. But we also have other ways that we can do it. What I'd like you to do is turn to page 31 in your book. And on page 31, I'm going to give you a script because there are certain ways that are definitely more effective than others to fill tanks. So if I could have one volunteer, and you guys, I don't know if you have your book. Do you guys have your book on you? But yeah, Ruben has his book. Okay. Can I have one volunteer to look at page 31 and read with as much enthusiasm as you can muster the quote of filling the tank using truthful and specific praise? Just pick the first one. Go ahead. And I would point to somebody that has their book open. Go ahead, Ruben.
Nice effort. You hustled and fought for all 4 quarters.
Exactly. Great. There were 2 words that are used, more misused than any others when you're talking about filling tanks. And those 2 words are good and job. Now, Ruben, if you were going to go out there on that field and you did hustle and you did work your tail off, and I said good job, is there any useful information in that statement?
It sounds encouraging.
Sounds encouraging. Will that change your behavior the next time? Possibly. But what we have found is that truthful and specific praise is much more effective. So look at that statement Ruben just said. Nice effort. You hustled and fought for all 4 corners. What did Ruben do well? What did that player do well that Ruben just told him specifically?
Fought for all 4 quarters.
Right. Fought for all 4 corners and he hustled. All right.
Corners or quarters?
Corners. We're talking corners, not corners. We're playing a different game. All right. Expressing appreciation.
That's a drinking game, Kelly.
Expressing appreciation. Can I have a volunteer to read with enthusiasm? Muster it up. Jim, can you read for me the second quote?
I love the way you kept your eye on the ball and followed through.
Love it. You appreciated that I kept my eye on the ball. You actually made me feel like you were paying attention. You showed me that you cared. Listening, and I would get another volunteer. Explain to me, how do you practice listening? Give me an example. Somebody read the quote for me.
How else do you think we can attack their zone defense?
Right. You are creating player coaches. You're giving the player a chance to voice how he felt or she felt about a certain play. That's what we call listening. And then the last one, nonverbal action, we already showed them. Smiling, clapping, nodding, thumbs up. Very good. Thank you, Jim, for that explanation. All right, so if we're talking about filling emotional tanks, if we know that kids with full tanks will perform better, what is one thing that most coaches can do to be more effective? I want you to think about yourself here. Okay, as a coach, now that you've got a lot of information, what's one thing that you can do, you can put into practice tomorrow to make yourself a more effective coach? I want you to turn to somebody in front of or behind you this time, and I want you to share with them one thing you can do to make yourself more effective. Go. All right. Somebody give me an example. What did you hear from someone else that you thought was, let's see how well you listened. What's something you heard from someone else that they can do?
Well, Ruben said that he could be a lot more patient.
Good. Excellent. Good listening, Eric. Ruben would like to be more patient. I like that. What's something else you can be to be more effective? You can do to be more effective.
My partner said be more specific with their feedback.
Good. I like that too. Excellent. More specific.
Go
ahead.
I could spend more time breaking down film.
Yes. Okay. So you can get more detailed into the actual films and the sport itself. All right. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Here's one of the most effective tools. This is something that has been researched over decades, and we call this the magic ratio. Here's what it is. It's a ratio of positives to criticisms, that when you're in this environment and this ratio of positives to criticisms gets very close to this, magical things can happen. Well, what magical things? You know, you're not going to take a losing team and make them all of a sudden champions, but slowly you're going to increase their performance. They're going to become more coachable. They're going to be able to listen. They're going to become that dream player that you would like them to be. So I want you to take a guess as to what this ratio would be. I'm going to give you multiple choice. If you think it's a 1-to-1, you're going to hold up a 1, positive criticism. If you think it's a 3-to-1, you're going to hold up a 3. If you think it's a 5-to-1, you're going to hold up a 5 with your fingers. 1, 2, 3, vote. What do you think it is?
Phil Jackson and I think it's...
Nice. All right. Phil and Jim say 5, and they are incorrect. Survey says correct. It is 5-to-1. Now, whoa. How in the world can we get to this 5-to-1 ratio? This is how you can become more effective instantly. Up your ratio. Now, even Phil Jackson said, and it's in the book as well, even Phil Jackson said when he heard this ratio of 5 positives to 1 criticism, that seems almost impossible. Especially on, for example, I'm coaching a team right now of 20 kids. I have 28 grade 8-year-old girls that I'm trying to teach how to play lacrosse to. How in the world can I give 100 positives for 20 criticisms? There's no way that's going to happen. So let's come up with some ways we can do this. Let's think about this. Let's hear from Phil Jackson, who is our national spokesperson, to hear what he did. Now, you can't hear this right now, but Phil is saying all of these wonderful things. He's saying it's about how you grow as a player. It's not about the negative time bomb that goes off. So that's the Phil Jackson video. That finishes playing. All right, let's put this to real life. Here's the situation. You know that athletes thrive on positive feedback, but your team makes so many mistakes. As a double goal coach, how can you give them the feedback they need to improve? So what I'm going to ask you to do is this. If you're coaching kids that are 8 years old and under, so you 8, I'm going to put you over here in this corner. If you're coaching kids that are 10 and under, you're going to be in this corner, 12 and under in this corner, and 15 and under in this corner. If you're coaching kids over the age of 15, you're going to stand right in the center. Because every different age level probably will handle this, the verbiage might be a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a minute to talk about how do you handle this? How do you give feedback? I want you to practice. Now you have some tools, a few tools. You have a framework to go by. I want you to practice how would you give feedback to these players to help them improve. So you go in your groups. Everybody's in corners of the room. They're all chit-chatting, talking. All right, let's bring it back in here. Okay, I would take an example from each group. So somebody that has the 8 and unders, what would you use? How would you handle this? Can I have a volunteer? One of you that coach kids 8 and under. The little ones.
We said that we would really try to zero in on one specific thing that we think is the most important, as opposed to trying to fix all the things that they're doing wrong.
Good. So take one at a time. That's a great idea. Yep, I like it. All right, somebody that has kids a little bit older, 12 and under or 10 and under group, how would you handle this?
I think kids just need to toughen up.
Right. Okay. So you think they should just be able to handle the criticism that you give them?
Yeah, I mean, kids are wimpy these days.
Sure. So no matter how you give them the feedback, you're saying that you just think they need to suck it up. How would you do that, Jen? How would you teach them to be tougher and just be able to take the criticism you're giving them?
I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have opened my mouth.
Come on, bring it on, Jim. I love people like you when you're in my crowd. All right. So then we've got a couple different examples of how to do that. One of the things that I heard, Jim said, I want to make them tougher. Okay, well, he wants to make them tougher because obviously the feedback he's giving them, they're showing him that they're not tough yet. And one of the reasons is because the feedback that Jim's giving them is not being well received. Quick example, I came home from grocery shopping yesterday afternoon and I had a whole load of groceries in my car and my 12-year-old daughter greeted me at the door and she said, "Hi, Mom." She opened the door right up away from me. And I said, "Hi, Gracie." And she said, "Your hair looks really great today." I said, "Wow, thanks." She said, "How was your day?" And I said, "It was good." And she said, "Let me go help you get the groceries in." And I'm thinking a little suspiciously, but she's being awfully friendly. And she went out to the car and she got my groceries and she was helping me unpack. And I said, "Grace, is everything okay?" And she said, "Everything's fine, Mom. Listen, how about I help you make dinner tonight? What are we having?" And I said, "Okay, we're going to have spaghetti." She said, "Oh, I love spaghetti. I love your meatballs. They're delicious." And I said, "Grace, what's going on?" And she said, "Well, I do have one little itty bitty thing to tell you." And I said, "What?" And she said, "You know how you keep telling me not to spin around on those new chairs we just got in our living room that swivel?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, I kind of got spinning a little bit too fast and I knocked over the hurricane lamp candle that you had on the coffee table and it smashed." And I said, "Oh, you did you?" And she said, "Yeah, but I cleaned it up and it's okay and I'll pay you for it." Now, think about that. I didn't teach my daughter to do that. Why did she feel it was necessary to butter me up and give me a definite 5-to-1 ratio of positives before she threw that zinger? Why was that important to my daughter Grace?
Because parents are suckers.
Right, because we are suckers. She wanted to make sure that when she said to me, "Mom, you told me not to do this, I did it anyway and I broke the candle," that I would be able to receive it. So let's talk about how we can get our players able to receive information that we want to give them. There's a few different ideas that we have, and these can be found in the book on page 40 and 41. I'm just going to go through them pretty quickly because most of them are common sense, but sometimes it helps to have reminders. Number one, avoid non-teachable moments. Tell me when there is a non-teachable moment in a game. When is it time to not talk to a kid about a mistake he just made?
After a kid is struck out with the bases loaded and we lose the game.
Exactly. Immediately after a mistake is probably not a good time to tell the child, "Guess what? You just made a mistake." Because most of the time when a child makes an error or a mistake in a game or a player, they know it. They don't need you as a coach to tell that to them again. When would be a good time to talk to a player about a mistake he or she just made in a game? When would be a better time?
Maybe during a timeout.
Sure.
Or a break in the action.
Absolutely. I once had a coach that had a sheet and she said, "This is called the bus. Anytime we make a mistake, we're going to park it. We're going to put it on the bus. We're going to talk about it later." So she never talked about mistakes that we made immediately when we came out. Next one, criticize in private. This is common sense, but we see coaches do it all the time. We like to say criticize in private, praise in public at any chance you can get. Ask permission. How would you ask permission to criticize? "Hey, do you mind if I bite your head off right now because you didn't do anything I just told you to do?" Is that what we're talking about? Probably not. How can you as a coach show that you're really listening by asking permission of a player to help them? How would you phrase that? Ruben? I thought that was your hand.
Hey, yeah. Hey, Kelly, I got an idea that's going to give you more velocity on your spikes. You want to hear it?
I love it. All right, let's take that same one and let's make that into an if-then statement. What if I say, "Yes, sure, Coach Ruben, I'd love to hear that." How would you phrase that in an if-then statement?
If you turn your shoulders to the net upon takeoff, you'll get more power on your hit.
Well, that sounds great to me. I'd love more power on my hit.
Kelly,
Yes.
I need to shift like Eric did to my phone, but I don't have a Hangout on my phone. Can I just listen to is there a way I can just listen? Is there a phone number to call?
I can't do that right now because it would hang up the Hangout to do that because it's on air because we're recording it.
Okay, I will. I'll catch up with you guys later. Then I'm gonna have to leave in a couple minutes. I'll stick with as long as I can.
Okay, I'll talk quick. All right, so
I'll listen to I'll watch the video too.
Okay. All right, so then the last one, the most famous and the simplest one that I hear is called the criticism sandwich. This is where we take two positives and we put the critique or the feedback on the inside of the sandwich. So can I have a volunteer? I'm sure a lot of you have used this before. May I have a volunteer to give me an example of a criticism sandwich that you would give to a player in order to sort of soften the blow of something you'd like him to do better or her to do better? Eric, I would love to hear your criticism sandwich.
Well, since we're all baseball coaches, one possibility is the the outfielder who drops the fly ball. And granted, it's very tempting for us to say, man, you got hands like feet, but we don't believe in sarcasm. So the situation of great break on the ball. When the ball left the bat, I never thought you'd get there. You were too stiff with your glove. As a result, it dropped out. However, you showed great presence of mind to throw the ball in quickly to hold the runner to a single, which I thought showed a real understanding of situational baseball.
I like it. So the criticism sandwich is a very simple tool. However, the criticism sandwich is only a ratio of what? What to what? 2 to 1. So let's take everything we know about how to up that ratio. We know about nonverbals. We know about listening. We know about expressing appreciation. Eric, what if you walked over to me and gave me that same criticism sandwich, but this time I want you to say my name.
Kelly,
I want you to smile.
I'd even smile. I'd get low at your level. I'd be.
And I want you to put your hand on my shoulder.
Well, I can't do that because I'm a creepy old man and you're a young girl, and I'm not going to do that. But I'll do something similar to that.
All right. So just by adding my name, smile on his face, and putting his hand on my shoulder, or a high five, or maybe a fist pump, or knuckles.
Or kneel down, perhaps.
Or kneel down at my level. You've just upped that one simple criticism sandwich, and you've made a deluxe burger of a 5 to 1 ratio. So that is a fantastic tool. Now, we're going to get into some tools that can help you up it even more. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you to get into groups of 3. The first person, and you're going to get into groups, when I tell you to get into a group of 3, the first person is going to look on page 35 in your book. And what I'd like you to do is just take a minute to read the little paragraph about the buddy system. It's a very effective tool. I want you to read that paragraph on the buddy system and be prepared to just share a couple sentences with your group of 3 on explaining what that buddy system tool looks like. The second person, I'm going to ask you to look on page 39, and I want you to read positive charting. It's a little bit longer. Take a minute to read that and explain it to your group. And the last one is the winner's circle on page 41. I'd like the third person to take that tool, and I want you to read the explanation and be prepared to share it with your group. So I'm going to give each group 1 minute to read and then 2 minutes to share, so that all 3 of you are reading simultaneously and then sharing. So we'll be back in 3 minutes. Boop. They're reading, they're talking, each person is sharing. All right, and then what I'm going to do with the whole group, I'm going to ask for one person to give me an example of how you would use buddy system on your team in real terms, in real player terms. So they would give me a share, how you use buddy system, how would you use positive charting, how would you use winner's circle. All right, and then I would follow up with one of the things that I found extremely effective coaching last year. Bye, Jim.
See you guys.
Is positive charting. And one of the ways that I did positive charting a little bit differently than the book explains is I put each one of the effort goals that they talked about, I put it on an index card. And every player got an index card with their name on it. And I had all of my 12-year-old lacrosse players, every single game, they had an index card that had their name and the goal for the game. And before the game started, I had them run over to their parents or grandparents or whoever was watching the game and hand them the card. And it was the parents' job to keep track of how many times that their daughter switched hands or hustled to the ground balls or hustled to the loose ball. And then at halftime, before they came to me, they ran off the field, ran over to their parents, grabbed the card, and we had a really quick and easy way for the players to look and see how many skills they improved on. So I actually put the parents to work, got them focused on what I wanted them to focus on, and then I had a lot of information. The kids were thrilled to see that their parents were paying attention, and I didn't have to do the work. And it was very, very effective. All right, I think that's it. Yep, there we are. Ba-dum-bum. That's it for Emotional Tank.
Great job.
All done.
Great.
Nice going, Kelly.
Okay. So are we debriefing here? What are we doing? I think it sounds good.
I think we should just talk about it for a few minutes.
Okay, great.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Well, a couple little things. Like I don't quite know where this PowerPoint came from. As far as notice that the question mark on the Maya Angelou is back instead of the period.
This was just the latest one. It could be the wrong version. This was just the latest one that I had.
It's hard. It's like things we fix seem to keep popping up. But if you look, Maya Angelou has a question mark. It shouldn't. It has a period, which I thought we'd fixed.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So
let me see if it's fixed on mine, Eric. Maya Angelou. What slide is that one? Number
24.
Okay, so on mine, you're saying, what are you saying, Eric? Question
It should
mark
be a
at the end of the
period.
quote?
The last one should be a period.
Mine has a question mark also.
Okay, can we just make sure? And again, we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but it's just we obviously want to catch these things for some reason. And the same thing between acting with integrity. There
Yeah,
was
I saw that too.
a slash, and I don't know why
This
that.
one here. Yeah.
I'd fix that at some point too.
Okay.
The final thing too is Jim said we've
also
done way. The 80,000 coaches, that came from Tina. It's 80,000 coaches annually. To me, we had talked about all these numbers intentionally were annually.
Okay.
So as a presentation, putting it in the notes is critical. We can also change it, but these were when Tina wanted or asked, as the chief impact officer, this was her phrasing. So that's why that's like that. So those were just the technical things. I think from a delivery standpoint, if Jim were here, I think it's one thing when it's Jim and his voice, but for the trainers of the pacing through the beginning I think is designed for much less sort of question and answer as opposed to building momentum and speed. At least when Jim sort of demonstrated on the phone to me is different than how he did it today.
Okay. Are you saying that the speed would be, because he went 22 minutes.
Right.
On the intro.
I don't even know about time. I just know about feel. Flow. Exactly. Right now, you're particularly for other trainers who don't know, who aren't Jim. It's. I think even he, as I said, when he modeled it, it's much more of a quick pacing of building momentum around, positive coaching. When you see what does this phrase mean to you, blah 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 blah, performance based, whatever. Just sort of a quicker pace to it.
Yep.
Or you're going to get stuck.
Yeah, I agree.
Eric, I'm sorry. I was making some changes to my PowerPoint and the script as you were talking. Were you saying that today when Jim practiced that he went at a faster pace or a slower?
Slower.
Today he went slower.
As opposed to when he and I originally were talking about the PowerPoint, it was to sort of build a case for positivity, as opposed to sort of stopping down and having people read. And I mean, maybe he's just changed the way he wants to do the pacing of the delivery. But I'm just...
Well, I will say this. Jim started at 10:45 sharp, and he finished at 11:07. So he had 22 minutes, and that was, fast forwarding through some things. Skipping some paired shares. I would say in a lot of workshop, the way Jim did it, that piece would be at least 30 minutes. And so I just, my question for Jim would be, is that the design? And certainly with the all staff, he can't go 30 minutes. I don't think he can go 22 minutes. Otherwise, we won't have time for the other stuff. So,
when I modeled it for you guys a while ago, I really kind of ripped through them quickly as a way, sort of building an argument and then getting into the workshop. So, then I'll be done. I need to switch over to my phone. If I could, can I just throw out my a couple other things that I thought? I like the idea when PCA models sort of a feeling connected, and that type of initially. Is making a transition sort of when they feel connected, and then the three principles is the how to do it.
Okay.
And I think that'd be a helpful transitional word for trainers to use.
Yep.
So these are the things that would make a great experience. Here is okay. So how do we do it? We do it through Elm Tree, E-Tank, Elm Tree, and honoring the game.
Okay.
And the more we have those sort of buzzword transitions, I think the faster the pacing will go.
Yep.
And then for you, I just like again, I love how I really like the movement. What's it? I'm sorry, I can't even read my own darn writing. But you just had nice ways of. Really like negative is. I like when Jim said that negativity is easier. I thought that was those types of phrases I think will really stick and help him to get everyone to say what he wants. I can't read my own writing. I just wrote really like something movement, but just the way you move people. I liked how you paired them by age. Thought that was you have all sorts of great ways to get people talking with each other in a way that's going to be most effective to them. So anyway, very nice.
Right. It actually took me longer. I went like 3 minutes. It was like 20 some minutes.
So I timed that too, because so I had Jim's handoff to you at 11:07, and you finishing at 11:33.
Right.
So that's 26 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and we also fast forwarded through parts of yours too.
Yeah.
So I think your pacing is realistic, and like Eric says, all the great interactive stuff you do, we want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it works if you have 2 hours to do the workshop.
Yeah.
When we have less than 2 hours to do the workshop, I think that piece needs to be 20 minutes. 20 minutes. So I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I was moving through it pretty quickly, but when I looked at the time, I was like, wow, I am going over here.
Yeah, but
I guess
you were
that's-
within acceptable parameters. I mean,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
And once we're doing it ourselves, or each person is doing it on their own, hopefully they'll be able to know, okay, I went a little heavy here, I'm going to go a little
Right.
light there.
Right.
I mean,
I know for me, Kelly, one of the difference I've noticed in how you deliver e-tank and how I deliver e-tank or facilitate e-tank, and I've noticed it because of the modeling and the course and stuff, is slide 25.
25. This one?
I make it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I spend 30 seconds on that slide.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that it's better to spend 30
Mm-hmm.
seconds. You definitely spend some time there. Where did you ask us about the favorite team we were on?
That was
how
this
you
one.
felt?
That was up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you definitely do. Yeah, you definitely do some discussion and exploration and interaction on that slide. So.
And I do that because I want them to think about the behaviors of the players, because I've heard coaches have said, oh yeah, I'm a positive coach. I would consider myself a positive coach, but if they have players that are exhibiting the behaviors of an empty tank, then they can do more to help change that. So that's why when I focus on that one, I do focus on what are the behaviors, what does it look like? What does a player with an empty tank look like on your field? And I'm always a big fan of letting the audience generate answers and then confirming them with what's on the slide, not just giving them to them, so that they can say, oh yeah, wow, I hit them all. We hit all these things. But it's just a matter of preference, how you want to do it.
Yeah. The point I'm making is, I'm just thinking, okay, so what if I was in Kelly's shoes and I only had 20 minutes to do this? And
the one thing though on this, and maybe Eric can answer this, I changed the animation so that it doesn't pop up right away. All the animation on the PowerPoint that I was sent comes up right away. Like, this is the slide. It comes up already popped. Is that how we're going to do it? Or is that just up to the trainer to change that?
That's a question. I think we should give them what we think is what works best for most people, And then, they can change it if they want to, but let me see how this works for me, Kelly. Let's see how this one. Give me just a second here. I'm curious how the animation works on that slide, because I noticed that some of the animation was not the way I would prefer it, but
right.
We all have individual preferences. Okay, so slideshow from current slide. So when I bring up that slide 25, bring up that slide, the first thing I get is filling the emotional tank, and then I have athletes with an empty tank, athletes with a full tank. I don't have any of it filled in. When I click, it fills in the empty tank side one by one. Pessimistic, give up more easily, are less coachable. Okay. And then it fills in the other side one by one. So I get 6 different animations.
And that's the way Jim wanted it. I liked them back and forth, but he wanted them all down.
Okay.
So is this where you like them back and forth, Eric? Or is it on the drain
I
fill
don't
that you
care.
like
I
it
mean, I
back
can
and
do it either way. I like them back and forth, but Jim wanted them all the way down. So I mean, I can make them work either way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is going to be a personal
You can
preference.
change them.
Yeah, I mean, and I've changed this before. Changed this for Elm Tree. I like to go back and forth on those, not all the way down, or vice versa. So I think any trainer that's a little tech savvy can figure out how to change the animations on that. But we should have it the way we want it to be best.
The one thing I was not able to do on changing animations, and maybe it was, it was one of them, where, okay, so for example, on this slide, there was one place where Eric and I had a preference of our pessimistic and our optimistic to come up together, and it wasn't this one. Okay, it was somewhere else. I don't know if it was on Elm, comparing a scoreboard and mastery definition of winning, or if it was on drain fill. I think it was on Elm. But there was some place where I was trying to get them both to come up together, and I couldn't. They were, but there might be a way, but I couldn't figure out the animation because the way it's built, our pessimistic is an individual text box.
Right. You can group them.
And
so if you highlight both of them, you can group them together to do the animations together.
How do I highlight both of them?
You'd have to probably hit, like on my computer, I would hit Control and do it that way. Hit Control instead of, or hold down the, I mean, I have to check off the play with it and see what it is. But there's a way you can do it.
In fact, let me see. Let me see where that was, if I made a note of it, because I actually would like to change that on mine.
Well, either way, I mean, we can
change
it around.
Eric, did I email you on that, Eric? You and Courtney asking if anybody knows how to animate it the way I described. Does that sound familiar to you?
I can't say that it does.
Yeah, maybe I thought about doing it and I didn't do it. Okay. Well, I don't have much to say about this.
Okay.
The whole thing. I think it'll be interesting to see if Jim gives us a reaction, because Kelly, you did bring your own flavor to it, which we all do. So how I'm curious, what Jim feels about that.